That silence has become one of the loudest facts in the story. If you want first-hand updates on this case and others like it,
They found a car on a dark lane and a phone ping where silence should have been. And suddenly a case that had stalled moves into a very different, far more urgent phase. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you get verified updates as investigators test, confirm and explain what these new pieces of evidence mean. What follows is a careful, plain language account of the new leads investigators say they have uncovered in the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. The details below summarize what law enforcement sources, court filings and forensic teams have reportedly described: surveillance footage showing an SUV on Gearlock Road late at night, deleted GPS traces reconstructed from a phone tied to someone connected with the family, forensic work underway to validate both, and a renewed, targeted search of secondary locations. Everything described in this report is either an investigative claim or a technical process that remains subject to laboratory confirmation. None of it is a court finding, and no criminal charge has been announced at the time of this report. A pair of breakthroughs, surveillance footage and recovered deleted GPS data, has shifted investigators' focus. For months the inquiry in this case followed the distressing pattern familiar in many rural missing person investigations: big initial searches, thousands of video files to review, many public tips to triage, and few clear locational anchors. That changed when investigators obtained a motion-activated camera clip showing a dark SUV moving slowly down Gearlock Road at approximately 11:47 p.m., a time and place that were not previously thought to contain activity tied to the disappearance. Separately, digital forensics analysts reported reconstructing deleted GPS data from a phone associated with a person connected to the family. Those coordinates reportedly placed that device in the same area and within minutes of the surveillance timestamp. Taken together, investigators say these two data streams, the visual record and the reconstructed digital trail, create a new, testable alignment in the timeline. Why does that matter? Surveillance footage and device location traces are among the most powerful types of auxiliary evidence investigators can use to tie people and places together. A clear camera image that shows a vehicle in a specific lane at a specific minute gives police a geographic anchor for subsequent activity. Which driveway did it pass? Which homes could have seen it? And what routes could the vehicle have taken next? Deleted GPS traces, when properly reconstructed and validated in a forensic lab, can do the same for devices. They show movement and place even when the device owner has attempted to remove records. When those two kinds of evidence point to the same coordinates and minutes, investigators gain an operational advantage. They can prioritize searches of nearby sheds, drainage culverts, and wooded access trails. They can seek corroborating camera angles, and they can re-interview witnesses with targeted questions about those precise times. The motion camera clip reportedly shows a dark SUV creeping along the isolated lane at roughly 11:47 p.m. According to sources familiar with the probe, the clip was captured by a private motion camera on a rural property along Gearlock Road. The image was reportedly grainy, as many rural camera clips are, but contained enough distinctive detail that forensic video specialists could work with it. Investigators say the vehicle's profile, a small rear window decal and other markers appeared to match an SUV belonging to a close family acquaintance who had earlier told police they had stayed at home that night. That apparent mismatch between an alibi and the camera record is what triggered urgent re-examination. Forensic video analysis is a methodical process. Specialists begin by stabilizing footage, adjusting exposure and contrast, and then applying frame-by-frame enhancement to reveal shape, lettering, or reflections that may be obscured in the original clip. Headlight reflections and wheel splatter patterns can indicate vehicle width and distance. Taillight shapes can narrow model types, and occasional partial license plate views, even a small fragment of a number or a sticker, can be cross-referenced against registration records. Investigators also examine ground disturbance near the lane. Fresh gravel marks, wheel ruts or displaced vegetation can be photographed, cast and measured. Even subtle things like the number and depth of tire grooves can link a single vehicle to a particular lane or shed entrance. The footage alone does not identify a driver or prove intent, and investigators have been careful to say so, but it does reopen questions about who was where that night. In missing person work, A single verified sighting in a previously unexamined time window can dramatically reshape a search strategy. Deleted GPS data reconstructed from a phone reportedly matched the surveillance timestamp. Digital forensics is sometimes described as archaeology for electronic life. Even when files are deleted, fragments or metadata often remain in caches, cloud backups, carrier records, or on residual partitions on hardware. In this investigation, forensic analysts reportedly recovered GPS coordinates from a device that had been wiped. These reconstructed coordinates put the phone in the same stretch of road at approximately the same minute the camera recorded the SUV. This type of recovery involves multiple possible sources: timestamps in cellular tower logs held by telecom providers, app-level backups that survived a wipe, cached GPS snapshots in cloud services, and sometimes fragments of system logs on the device itself. Forensic teams must carefully document every step, maintain an unbroken chain of custody for any recovered files, and validate that coordinates correspond to the device in question rather than to some synced account or associated device. The presence of matching GPS data and surveillance timecodes, if validated, provides a powerful circumstantial link that reduces ambiguity. It places both a vehicle and a device in the same place at the same time. Investigators say the device was deliberately wiped shortly afterward, which raises additional questions. A deliberate data wipe does not, on its own, prove wrongdoing. People wipe phones for many reasons: to clear personal data before passing the device to another person, to remove embarrassing communications, or simply out of privacy concerns. In an investigative context, however, a targeted and timely deletion, especially in a narrow window after a potentially significant event, is treated as a red flag. Forensics teams examine system logs to determine whether deletion commands were initiated on the device itself, whether remote wipe functions were employed, or whether cloud backups were erased. Even when deletion commands succeed, traces often remain: server logs at cloud providers, unallocated disk space with residual fragments, or network artifacts that show when deletion requests were transmitted. Given that background, investigators moved quickly to corroborate the camera footage and device traces with other lines of evidence. Renewed searches were authorized in multiple secondary sites: a private storage shed, a drainage area, and a wooded access trail several kilometers from the Sullivan home. Those locations are not random. Investigators reportedly mapped geographic corridors that a vehicle could have used to move from the lane to less obvious spots. Witness statements now contradict earlier accounts and timelines, investigators say. One of the practical consequences of introducing precise, time-stamped technical data is that it allows detectives to test earlier statements. Where a witness previously said they were home all night, or where family members offered a particular sequence of events, investigators can now match those statements against camera frames, GPS coordinates, and other objective anchors. Sources indicate that investigators have found inconsistencies in multiple accounts, not necessarily evidence of deliberate deception, but enough disparity to merit re-interviewing witnesses under careful, recorded conditions. Human memory is fallible, especially under stress. People can misremember times, conflate sequences, or unintentionally omit details. Nonetheless, when timeline inconsistencies align with technical evidence showing a device or vehicle was in a place where someone earlier said they were not, investigators are obliged to pursue that as a material lead. Re-interviewing witnesses, obtaining phone records, and cross-referencing bank transactions are standard steps in that follow-up work. Investigators are preparing for the possibility of criminal charges, but forensic confirmation is required first. Both the surveillance clip and the reconstructed GPS data are what investigators call potentially probative evidence. They are powerful only after validation. Labs must confirm the camera's timecode integrity, rule out tampering, and enhance frames without introducing artifacts. Digital forensics must demonstrate provenance for recovered GPS data, that the coordinates belong to the device in question, that timestamps were not altered, and that any cloud or carrier records corroborate the local findings. Only with that validation can investigators confidently seek arrest warrants, present evidence to prosecutors, and consider charging someone. Investigators are reportedly preparing for that eventuality by compiling warrants, checking legal thresholds, and lining up the documentation prosecutors will demand. Preparing a criminal case requires not just the discovery of incriminating material but its lawful acquisition and robust vetting, so defense counsel cannot easily undermine it. The broader context. The case began May 2, 2025, and initial searches found no physical tracks. From the start, this has been a difficult and frustrating inquiry. After the missing person report on May 2, massive searches by RCMP and volunteers combed forest, pipelines, ponds and fields. K-9 units, drones and helicopters covered wide ground. Yet early teams reported a lack of consistent physical traces, few definitive footprints, no confirmed drag marks, and no eyewitness sightings that could be pinned down to specific locations. That absence of early physical evidence is what made the case vulnerable to speculation and to a broad set of investigative hypotheses. Wandering, accidental drowning, and, earlier on, the possibility of stranger involvement were all considered and tested to varying degrees. The recent technical leads changed that landscape. Where early physical signs were missing, these new, time-stamped electronic and visual records provide fresh anchors. They allow investigators to move from searching broadly to testing specific scenarios that align with device and vehicle movement. What these developments mean, and why investigators are still cautious. Two technical findings do not automatically resolve the core question of what happened to Lilly and Jack. They produce new lines of inquiry and increase the probability that someone with access to the area and knowledge of the family's routines was present in the late-night window. They also intensify scrutiny on a person of interest described in source accounts as a family acquaintance with an SUV similar to the one in the footage. But responsible investigation requires proof beyond reasonable doubt before public assertions of guilt. Forensics, corroboration with independent camera angles or plate reads, and eliminating alternative explanations are essential steps. Moreover, deleted data can sometimes be explained by non-criminal motives, someone fearful of data exposure acting in panic, or a device wiped for privacy reasons unrelated to a crime. Surveillance footage can be ambiguous, and vehicle models are often common, making visual matches suggestive but not conclusive. Investigators will present the strongest possible combination of data to prosecutors only after they are confident it will withstand legal scrutiny. What should the public do if they have footage or information? If you have unedited camera files, doorbell clips, dashcam footage, or original phone files, preserve the original, don't re-upload compressed versions, and contact investigators to provide the file directly. Metadata is often decisive. Upload version strip or re-encode timestamps and GPS tags, making them less useful in court. Provide precise times, locations, and any details you remember about persons or vehicles seen. Above all, avoid circulating unverified content on social media. Speculation can muddy the search and compromise evidentiary value. A concluding reality check and a call for rigor. This is a pivotal moment in a painful, unresolved case. The combination of a surveillance sighting and recovered deleted GPS data gives investigators concrete, testable leads and has prompted targeted searches and renewed scrutiny of timelines and witness statements. Those are meaningful advances. Yet the work ahead is painstaking. Forensic labs must confirm the evidence, investigators must corroborate it across independent sources, and prosecutors must build a case that will hold up in court. If the forensic confirmations come back positive, this inquiry is likely to escalate into a criminal investigation with substantially different legal options. For now, however, the RCMP's public posture remains cautious. Leads are promising, work is ongoing, and conclusions will follow only when evidence justifies them. Hold space for Lilly and Jack and for the family. Demand rigor, not rumor. Preserve original footage if you have it, and pass it to investigators. We will continue to follow verified developments closely and report them clearly and responsibly as officials confirm each step of their work.